Vampire the Masquerade can be scary for new players. And I don't mean just the vampires. I mean the complexity of the rules. Teburu comes along and they have a game system that blends the analog with the digital, including a game master application that keeps track of your movements and manages the rules. Can this new system tame the complexity and bring in new players? Well, I sat down at the Vampire the Masquerade booth to talk to Teburu about their new game, Milan Uprising.
All right, sassy gamers, this is Phoenix Nova behind the camera at PAX West 2023, and I am with Donald of Teburu. Nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
So you've got a very interesting thing with this Teburu board and the games that you can play on it, but that word means probably very little to the audience at this point. Tell us a little bit about this whole setup.
Yeah, so we have two things going on here. We have our game, Vampire the Masquerade, Milan Uprising, which is a campaign, narrative-based game, cooperative set in the Vampire the Masquerade universe. But it's being played on top of the Teburu system, which is a trifold board with a thin layer of electronics and sensors on it. So the way that we physically interact with the board, as we see right here, it registers all of our actions and tracks the game. So it's not a simple companion app that we have to tell what we do on each turn. It's automatically tracking our turns. So I just made a movement at San Siro. I'm going to take another one here as prompted by the tutorial stage. And so we see that just by moving across the board, it knows what I'm doing. Additionally, if I took a particular action on my device, it's already processing this information as we go.
Now, you say your device. Why do you have a separate device if we've got the device over there that is showing us where we move and then the physical movements?
Yeah, so what we have set up right here is the kind of the best setup that you could have at the moment. So we have a main device running as our master, game master here, or in the context of Vampire the Masquerade, our storyteller. So it's going to be running the game for us, and this is for all players to be able to reference on the top. Now we have our own personal devices to use as well. So this is going to be our character sheet, as well as the actions that we can take. Now we might have some personal objectives. This might be a cooperative game, but we're selfish vampires. So we have some information we might want to keep to ourselves. And so we can see that through our own personal objectives. But in general, we're going to be making decisions for the benefit of the group.
So you said your own personal objectives. So certain things that when you move, we saw show up on the main screen.
Yes.
Which in this case is an iDevice, but we could also do PC to a TV or something like that.
PC, Android, and iOS.
But on your own personal device, you were able to see information only on that device that's only for you and doesn't show up on the main device.
Exactly. So right here, Latebra, she moved into San Siro. She's following up on a previous quest line started by our Bruja character. So she is going to be getting a setup, or everyone's getting a setup of the scene here. So we're looking for a German Shepherd named Caesar that's been taken by a gangrel named Skinner. It was taken by a rival named Monica, but we got to figure out where they are. So what I'm going to get on my own personal device are the options of what I can do in this scenario. Now, I'm the only one located here in this scenario, so I'm the only one who has these options listed. No one else knows what my options are. Now, if I select an option, they'll be able to see what I selected, but they don't know what else I could have done. I could have chosen an option that was better for me instead of an option that was better for the coterie as a whole, but they don't know that. They only see what happens. So I'm
even though it's cooperative, there's a little bit of self-interest involved.
We're selfish vampires. So now here, for example, I have two approaches I can take to the situation, but I got to contextualize what it is. One says, ask around the neighborhood and hope I get lucky. And the other one says to use my local street knowledge to define likely locations to where this Monica might be. And so, contextually, I have to decide which one I might be better at. Street knowledge, that might have to do with my streetwise skill. I got a point in that. Ask around the neighborhood, maybe that's perception, maybe it's not. Maybe it's an investigation. I'm good at persuasion, but not investigation. So I have to decide what I might want to do there.
So I think that's fantastic that you have a list of actions that you can take, but are vague enough that it won't tell you exactly what it's going to roll against. But you can still check your own stat sheet and try to make guesses from your stat sheet of what you're good at and try to play to your strengths.
Exactly.
Without being almost to the level of like min-maxing where, oh, I know it's going to roll this, so I'm going to like go to this one.
cannot game the system. So a big
Yeah.
part of what we want to accomplish here is we want to translate the experience of the Vampire the Masquerade tabletop RPG and just bring it to a more approachable board game format. So you're going to see a lot of the same mechanics and styles of play to where the storyteller knows what's required, but we don't know until they tell us what we got to roll.
Well, and I think another advantage, having played this the other day with the storyteller being on the main device and being run by an application, is that it can take extremely complex rule sets like Vampire the Masquerade, that as your your hunger level increases, it changes things that the dice are going to do, especially for success or failure. That, like, yeah, sure, if you play the game enough, you'll understand the rules, you'll get it, but you can just let the device do that part for you, remembering the rules, and you can just roll and play and see what the results are and have fun.
Exactly. That's one of the big benefits of this system, is reducing that barrier of entry to games. A lot of people hear tabletop RPG, they say that sounds too complicated. But a board game, they'll try that. And a good thing for most players is there's no rule book involved. No one has to read the rules for 40 minutes, explain them for 30, and then set up the game, and no one wants to play anymore. You jump into the game, start playing, and it teaches you as you go.
So, and I like the expandability because what you demonstrated for me the other day was that the board itself is modular. So you could not only play different games on top of this, but you could, there's the potential that a different grid format of the board could be released. And also, why I think the exciting thing is, as you've demonstrated, moving the characters from place to place with the sensors in the board, but since it's an app running on a device, it can also be connected to other Bluetooth items. For instance, like these awesome dice that you have.
Yes. So we have right here our standard board with its standard grid layout. This is our second game using the same board, and our next upcoming games are going to use the same board as well. But because it's modular in design, it could be that in the future someone decides to make a new board peripheral for a bigger size, or it could be a denser grid layout, and you don't have to buy a whole
hexagonal
board. It could be hexagonal, and all you got to do is plug and play to the new peripheral. You can also connect different devices. For example, in our first game, the Bad Karmas, which is a cooperative boss battler, the large bosses are actually on an LED ring base connected to the system. Because it's such a large enemy, he's got multiple quadrants you can attack, so he can display different status effects on those individual quadrants.
Very cool, very cool. And I think the nice thing too is that the game system, the storyteller, as you said, all of that's in the app. So, when something like this is released, well, I mean, updates.
Oh yeah. So we can, at any point, if you have the physical components for the game already, we can push out digital only content. So just because you buy the game doesn't mean that's all you're going to have. And instead of running another crowdfunding campaign for another expansion, physical, we could just straight publish a digital expansion for you. And you don't have to wait for the shipping.
Very cool. So I mentioned the dice. Is that something that you'll be able to show us?
Yes, we actually
I know
can do
they're
right now.
prototypes.
So yeah, these ones are handmade prototypes, so they have some personality. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use my local street knowledge. And so what I can see is we're going to go into an ability check here, where if we roll an Ankh, that's a success. A skull subtracts a success. And if we get 2 criticals, then we get 4 successes. Now I'm going into this, and I was correct in that this used my Streetwise skill. I have 1 point in Streetwise, so I'm getting 1 automatic success. I have 3 points in my social attribute for the social check, so I'm rolling 3 dice, and it's going to calculate my results automatically. Now, it said it was an easy approach, so it could have been somewhere in this range, and it turned out to be 2, so I succeeded. Medium could be around here, hard, and then even extreme difficulty levels. So you don't know exactly what's required in any one approach until you get into it, much like you would in a session of Vampire the Masquerade.
Very cool, very cool. And I know you already said this, but I do appreciate the fact that, the only device that really you and the other players are touching is your personal device and the board game itself.
Yeah.
And so that, even though you were motioning towards the storyteller there, there's no input being put into it other than the board and the dice. And I also noticed that it prompts you to update the board when certain things happen.
Exactly.
So the concept of like, the players take their moves, the opposing like AI opponent then takes its moves, and it prompts you to like put cubes of influence in different parts of the board. So very cool that it like updates during the whole thing, runs the whole game for you.
So it does, as you mentioned, it can run and manage these enemies through their own kind of AI, their own personal ambitions and goals. So regardless of whether we interact with them in certain areas, they're still going to be pursuing their own objectives. The Camarilla and the Second Inquisitioner, they're going to be fighting each other across the city as well. And if whether or not we go there or choose not to go there, it's still going to resolve some way or another. So they're not simply reacting to our actions. They are making their own decisions and moving forward.
And more importantly, it's not like one of the ways it's been resolved in other board and card games is having like a randomized boss deck that is shuffled together. And that's not what this sounds like at all.
No, so going back to the Bad Karmas, our boss battler, rather than the AI deck of cards, you flip one and it might have do this or this. Instead, he's aware of all of your presence. He knows where you are, he knows your statuses. So he's going to make real, intelligent, real-time decisions in the fight against you. He can even react to your very actions. If you try to move up behind Ares when he's paying attention, he might immediately turn around and interrupt you. So you got to decide how to approach this fight.
Very cool. So Donald, kind of a two-parter here. First of all, how can people like find out more and get this? And what's some of the future plans with Teburu?
So we have just wrapped up our crowdfunding campaign for Vampire the Masquerade, Milan Uprising, just last Friday, or the previous Friday, and we raised 700,000 euro. So we are moving forward with this game for delivery in September 2024. But if you miss that campaign, we will be opening up the late pledge on GameFound within a couple weeks, around mid-September. So if you go to teburu.net, you can get more information and a link to that GameFound page so that you can keep track of when that releases. Additionally, we recently announced a partnership with Hasbro. So I might not be able to speak directly to which games are coming, but if you think of the various IPs and games that Hasbro and their partners have, we have a lot of potential here for the future.
Awesome. Okay, Donald, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
And you have a great rest of your PAX.
You too.